Welcome back to my wood shop and welcome to the next evening devotional. I hope that these are helpful to you and you're finding them to be calming as well as challenging. Speaking of challenging, tonight's devotional comes from the book of Ephesians chapter 4, starting with verse 1 and reading all the way through verse 6. So chapter 4 verses 1 through 6 reads as follows. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all. This passage begins with a very difficult phrase. It's not difficult to understand. It's a very difficult phrase in what it calls us to do. We're called to live a life worthy of the calling of the Lord, but the phrase that's difficult is not that one. You would be able to say and be accurate that theologically living a life worthy of the calling of God to be Christ's ambassadors is nigh impossible, and I would agree with you, but for the help of the Holy Spirit. But to me, anyway, the hardest phrase is what he begins with. As a prisoner. Not just any prisoner, but as a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. As a prisoner, Paul calls us to live in a manner that's worthy of the calling of Christ. This is a man who has given everything up, who has sacrificed all for the cause of Christ, and is because of that a prisoner. So we would think today of prisoners, we think orange jumpsuits, we think black numbers across the chest or the back, we think of going in chains, we think that this person has done something wrong, immoral, unethical, it's certainly illegal in order to become a prisoner. That's not the kind of prisoner he's talking about, though. He's talking about a prisoner who has been thrown in jail because he has gone public with his faith in Jesus Christ and has refused to bow knee to the lords of the land. As such, he's calling us to a life that's worthy of the calling of the crucified one. In the midst of this, the interesting thing is that how he calls us then to be worthy are these words which seem very soft, and yet I would challenge you are very, very hard. Be completely humble. Gentle. Patient. Bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. As a prisoner, I urge you to be humble. As a prisoner, I urge you to be gentle. As a prisoner, I urge you to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. That's kind of hard. I don't know about you, but in our family, we are getting on each other's nerves a little bit. The proximity, the noise, even the competing for Wi-Fi. Well, with me trying to do Zoom meetings at the same time, my wife is trying to do Zoom piano lessons at the same time, my kids are trying to do their exercises, activities, homework, and then some fun and play after they finish their day's work. Even competing for Wi-Fi causes us to be a little selfish. Have I been making every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit in my family through the bond of peace? No, but I'm going to try. And I certainly hope that after today's message, you and your family will try as well. So I ask that as soon as this devotional is done, you and your family would gather and you would apologize for those times when you've been selfish, one to another. Mean it. And then strive prayerfully and mightily to maintain the unity of the one body, which is Christ's, the church, within your own home. It's hard. It's hard. But we've been called by a Christ who's crucified and by the Apostle Paul, who was imprisoned, to give up everything for ourselves, everything of ourselves, for the sake of Christ. Are you willing to be a prisoner for God? Not just for the coronavirus? I hope so. May God bless you and keep you. May He cause His face to shine upon you.